You know what destroys a narcissist the most? It's not your anger. It's not your silence. It's the final goodbye. The one that doesn't come with an explanation, a tear, or a second chance, because they thrive on control, on watching you break, bend, and beg. And when you don't, when you finally walk away without looking back, it shakes their entire illusion. You see narcissists build a world where they are the center, where your worth depends on their approval. They rewrite your story until you start doubting your own truth. But the moment you say, I'm done, without justifying, defending, or apologizing, that's when you take your story back. That's the goodbye they can't process, because it's not just about leaving them, it's about leaving the version of yourself they created. The final goodbye isn't loud, it's quiet, it's calm, it's the kind of silence that screams self-respect, and they can't handle it because it's the first time you're not reacting, you're deciding. So before we go deeper, remember this, you don't need closure from someone who was never open. The closure happens when you finally realize your peace is louder than their chaos. The final goodbye isn't revenge, it's freedom. When you finally pull away, they panic, not because they love you, but because they're losing control of their favorite supply, your attention. A narcissist doesn't see you as a person, they see you as a mirror. And when that mirror stops reflecting their greatness, they shatter it. They'll twist stories, spread lies, or suddenly act like the victim. It's their desperate attempt to reel you back into their game. They might say things like, you've changed, or you're overacting. But what they really mean is, you're not under my spell anymore. And that terrifies them, because your silence, your refusal to explain, confronts them with a truth they can't stand without control. They are nothing. So they'll poke at your empathy, the same empathy they once exploited. They'll cry, apologize, or promise change. But remember, a narcissist doesn't miss you. They miss the power they had over you. The mask starts to crack the moment you stop feeding it. And for the first time, they're forced to face themselves, the emptiness behind the performance. But don't confuse their pain with transformation. It's not remorse, it's withdrawal. You were their source of emotional oxygen, and now they're gasping. This is where your real strength begins, holding firm while they unravel. Something extraordinary happens after you walk away. The energy shifts. For the first time, you hold the power, but it doesn't come from controlling them. It comes from reclaiming yourself. You see, narcissists build their entire existence on manipulation. They study your fears, your kindness, your guilt, and use them like strings to make you dance. But when you cut those strings, they can't perform their role anymore. Their control dissolves and the illusion collapses. They'll try everything to get it back. Sudden affection, fake accountability, even anger disguised as passion. But here's the truth. They don't want reconciliation. They want access. Access to your emotions, your energy, your mind. And when you deny that access, you're not being cruel, you're being free. The power shift isn't about dominance. It's about boundaries. It's about realizing you don't owe them a conversation, a reason, or even closure. Every time you resist the urge to explain yourself, you're breaking their cycle. Every time you choose peace over drama, you're rewriting the ending they never expected. The narcissist can't handle that kind of quiet power, because real strength doesn't shout, it radiates. And when you finally glow without their validation, that's when they realize they've lost the only thing they can't replace, your light. When the final goodbye settles in, the narcissist begins to crumble, not in a way that invites your sympathy, but in a way that reveals who they've been all along: empty, desperate, and exposed. They start losing grip on the narrative. The person they painted as weak, dependent, and confused has suddenly become powerful, peaceful, and unreachable. And that breaks something inside them, because narcissists survive through chaos, and you've just taken their chaos away, so they spiral. They'll throw accusations like daggers. You're heartless. You abandoned me. You'll regret this. But these words aren't truth. They're projection. It's their way of transferring their pain, their shame, their insecurity onto you. But don't take the bait. Don't step back into their storm, because every time you respond, every time you defend, they feed on it. And when you refuse, when you walk away with quiet strength, you starve their ego. Their control collapses, because it never came from real love. It came from your willingness to believe their version of love. And once you see that clearly, you can't unsee it. You stop searching for closure in someone who was never emotionally open. You stop explaining your pain to someone who enjoyed causing it. And that's when they finally understand your goodbye wasn't a threat. It was the end. Silence. It's the one thing that terrifies a narcissist, because silence means you've stopped dancing to their tune. It means you're no longer performing in their drama. See, they expect noise. They expect confrontation, begging, tears, and closure, seeking messages. They thrive on your emotional reactions. It makes them feel powerful, relevant, in control. But when you give them silence, it's like holding up a mirror they can't look into. Your silence forces them to face the one thing they've been running from their whole life, themselves. no distractions, no control, no one left to blame. They'll reach out not because they miss you, but because your quietness disrupts their illusion. They'll test your boundaries with small hooks. How are you? Text, a nostalgic memory, a fake apology wrapped in charm. But silence is your armor. It's how you communicate without words. You no longer have access to me. And yes, they'll rage, they'll soak, they'll play the victim, but that's not your responsibility anymore. Your silence isn't punishment, it's protection. It's you choosing peace over pain, truth over illusion, healing over chaos. Remember this, silence is not weakness, it's the sound of yourself, worth finally speaking louder than their manipulation. And for them, that silence is unbearable, because in it they lose everything they once controlled. When they realize you're truly gone, not physically, but emotionally, spiritually, and mentally, the narcissist launches their favorite weapon, the smear campaign. They can't stand losing control, so they rewrite the story to make themselves the hero and you the villain. They'll twist the truth, invent lies, and tell anyone who will listen that you were unstable, selfish, or cruel. It's not about destroying your reputation, it's about protecting their image, because to them, being the victim keeps the spotlight where they need it on themselves. They can't say, I lost someone who finally saw through me, so they say, I escaped someone toxic. It's projection at its finest, accusing you of everything they've done. They're not telling your story, they're escaping accountability. But here's where your strength shines through you stay silent. You don't defend yourself in their circus. You let truth speak quietly over time, because real ones always see, they always notice who's bitter and who's healing. Let them talk, let them twist. You don't need to fight lies when you're busy living your truth, because while they're obsessed with image, you're focused on growth. And one day, the same people they fooled will see the cracks, because nothing built on lies stays standing for long. And when that happens, your calm will be the loudest statement you ever make. Something powerful begins to bloom after the storm. The fog of confusion lifts, and for the first time in a long time, you start to see yourself clearly, not through their distorted lens of blame and control, but through the lens of truth and self-worth. You begin to realize that love was never supposed to hurt this much. It was never supposed to make you question your reality, your goodness, or your sanity. And that realization, that awakening, is the beginning of your freedom. You start remembering the parts of you that got lost in their shadow, the laughter you silenced to keep the peace, the dreams you buried to make them comfortable, the boundaries you raised to earn their affection. But now those parts are returning, stronger, wiser, and beautifully unapologetic. This is the phase where healing feels both painful and powerful, because you're shedding the version of yourself that settled for crumbs while calling it connection. You're no longer chasing closure, you're creating it from within. And slowly you stop asking, why did they treat me this way? Instead, you start asking, why did I stay so long? And that question doesn't bring shame, it brings awakening. Because healing isn't about blaming yourself, it's about reclaiming yourself. Piece by piece, truth by truth. After the chaos, the silence, and the pain, something sacred begins to take shape. Peace. It's not loud or dramatic. It's soft, steady, and real. The kind of peace that doesn't need validation, permission, or approval. You start waking up without that heavy weight on your chest. The constant anxiety fades. The urge to check your phone, to defend yourself, to prove your worth disappears. You begin to exist in your own rhythm again. Rebuilding peace means creating a space where manipulation no longer feels like love. It's choosing calm over chaos, stillness over performance, truth over fantasy. And every day as you protect that peace, you start to see who you really are when you're not surviving someone else's storm. You find comfort in solitude, not loneliness, but safety. You rediscover your laughter, your creativity, your self-trust. You start setting boundaries, not out of fear, but out of deep respect for your soul. And here's the beauty of it. The peace that once felt foreign becomes your new normal. You no longer crave their attention, you crave your own alignment, because peace isn't the absence of noise. It's the presence of self-love. It's the calm after the final goodbye that no narcissist can ever touch. Freedom, that's the chapter they'll never be part of. Because true freedom requires self-awareness, empathy, and humility, 3 things a narcissist cannot hold. While they're still trapped in the endless loop of blame and performance, you're finally living in truth. You no longer walk on eggshells. You no longer shrink to make others comfortable. You no longer explain your worth to someone committed to misunderstanding it. That's the kind of freedom that terrifies them, because they can't follow you there. You've broken the cycle they needed to survive. They'll try to recreate it with someone else. But deep down, they know what they lost someone real, someone who loved deeply, forgave endlessly, and finally chose themselves. And though they may try to haunt your peace, through memories, through whispers, through old habits, they can't touch what they no longer control. You've evolved beyond their reach. You've stepped out of the narrative they wrote for you and started writing your own one, built on truth, integrity, and courage. Freedom isn't about escaping them. It's about coming home to yourself. It's breathing without fear. It's existing without explanation. It's thriving without apology. And when they realize they can't own your spirit anymore, that's when they finally understand what your final goodbye truly meant. You were never theirs to begin with. This is where it all comes full circle. The final goodbye, not the dramatic kind, not the tearful kind, but the quiet soul level goodbye that says, you no longer have access to my heart, my mind, or my peace. Because the truth is, the final goodbye isn't just about leaving them. It's about returning to you. It's about realizing that love doesn't demand you to lose yourself. That peace isn't found in proving your worth to someone blind to it. That closure doesn't come from their apology. It comes from your healing. You stop replaying what went wrong. You stop hoping they'll change. You stop trying to understand why they couldn't love you right. And instead, you begin to honor the most powerful decision you ever made, walking away. The final goodbye isn't revenge. It's resurrection. It's the rebirth of a person who learned that leaving isn't weakness. It's wisdom. That silence isn't avoidance. It's protection. That distance isn't cold. It's sacred. So when they say, you'll miss me someday, you smile softly, not out of bitterness, but out of truth. Because the only thing you'll ever miss is the person you were before you remembered your worth. And that right there is the goodbye they'll never understand, and the one that finally sets you free.